You think solitude is weakness. Monks, billionaires, and geniuses know it's the ultimate power move. The question is, are you brave enough to master it? Have you ever found yourself sitting alone, engulfed in the quietness of your surroundings, with only the soft whisper of the wind and the echo of your thoughts as your company? What if I told you that this silence, the very thing you fear, holds the key to unlocking a power so profound it's been guarded by monks, philosophers, and the greatest minds in history? Buddha once said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." Yet here you are, scrolling, comparing, running from the one person you can never escape. You. In a world drowning in noise, endless notifications, curated highlight reels, and the suffocating pressure to belong, loneliness has become a pandemic. But what if the ache you feel isn't because you're alone, but because you've forgotten how to be alone? Why do we dread solitude like a curse when ancient wisdom reveals it's the ultimate liberation? Here's the brutal truth. Your fear of silence is a prison. Your addiction to distraction? A slow suicide of the soul. Hidden in the teachings of Buddhist masters lies a radical blueprint, not just to survive being alone, but to thrive in it. Imagine waking up unshaken by others' opinions. Picture facing your darkest fears and emerging lighter, freer, unstoppable. This isn't fantasy. For centuries, warriors of the mind have used these secrets to turn solitude into their greatest weapon. Yet few dare to master it. Why? Because it demands facing the void and discovering it's not empty, it's full of you. If you're going to get one thing out of this video, let it be this. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's the birthplace of genius, clarity, and unshakable peace. And by the end, you'll uncover a bonus lesson so transformative, it rewires how you see every relationship, struggle, and moment of doubt. The question isn't, can you handle being alone? It's, can you afford not to? Press play, the journey begins now. Lesson 1. The forest of unique trees. Stop comparing yourself. There was once a vast forest where no two trees were the same. Some stood tall, their branches stretching toward the sky, while others twisted and turned, shaped by the wind. Some bore fruit, others bloomed with flowers, and a few stood bare, yet strong. But none of them competed for sunlight. They simply grew, each at its own pace, in its own way. Now imagine if these trees started comparing themselves. The tall ones envied the ones with flowers. The fruit-bearing trees resented those that stood effortlessly strong, and the twisted branches wished to be straight. In their longing to be something else, they forgot their purpose, to grow as they were meant to. This is how most people live. We measure ourselves against others, their success, their beauty, their relationships. We scroll through images of perfect lives, wondering why ours isn't the same. But what we don't realize is that this constant comparison is the root of suffering. Buddha called this dukkha, the unease, the dissatisfaction that arises when we believe we are not enough. Be a lamp unto yourself, the Buddha said. That means stop looking outside for validation. Stop using others as a measuring stick for your worth. When you compare, you only see shadows, illusions of perfection that hide struggles you'll never witness. The truth is, every person carries unseen burdens. The one with wealth may crave peace, the one with fame may long for privacy, and the one with beauty may suffer from loneliness. No one has everything. And that's why comparison is a losing game. What you see as flaws are the very things that make you unique. The knots in a tree's bark tell the story of storms it has survived. The uneven branches show the directions it has reached toward the sun, Likewise, your imperfections are not weaknesses. They are proof of resilience. Your scars, your setbacks, your struggles, they shape you into something irreplaceable. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt truly content without measuring yourself against someone else? Can you recall a moment when you were at peace, simply being yourself? If that moment feels rare, it's because society conditions us to chase approval. But solitude teaches a different lesson. When you are alone, there is no one to compare yourself to. There is only you as you are. The challenge is to shift your focus inward. Every day, write down one thing you admire about yourself. Not something external, like how you look or what you own, but something real. Maybe it's your patience, your creativity, your kindness. With time, this simple act rewires your mind to seek self-acceptance instead of external validation. A tree never looks at another and asks, "Am I enough?" It simply grows. So why should you? 2. Bamboo in the storm build unshakable resilience. In the heart of a dense forest, there stood a grove of bamboo. Unlike the mighty oak or the towering pine, the bamboo did not resist the wind. It swayed, it bent, it yielded. And when the storms came, tearing through the land with unforgiving force, it was not the rigid trees that survived, it was the bamboo. It bent so deeply that it nearly touched the earth. Yet, when the storm passed, it stood tall once more, unbroken, unchanged, and stronger than before. Most people believe strength means being unshakable, never bending, never breaking. But true strength is knowing when to yield. The Buddha once taught that suffering arises when we resist the natural flow of life. We fight against change, against loss, against uncertainty. But like a clenched fist, resistance only creates more tension, more pain. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Smile, breathe, and go slowly." This is the wisdom of bamboo. It does not fight the wind, it moves with it. Think about your life. How often do you fight against things you cannot control? A lost job, a broken relationship, an unexpected setback. These storms come without warning, and we respond with resistance. We tighten, we refuse to let go. We try to force things back to how they were. But the harder we cling, the more we suffer. Now, imagine facing these storms like bamboo. Instead of resisting, you yield. Instead of breaking, you bend. When you lose something, instead of mourning what was, you open yourself to what could be. When you face disappointment, instead of letting it define you, you adjust, you adapt, you grow. This is not weakness. This is resilience. Yielding doesn't mean giving up. Bamboo never stays bent forever. It knows when to move with the wind and when to stand tall again. There is wisdom in surrender, but there is also wisdom in knowing when to rise. The greatest warriors are not those who fight every battle, but those who know which battles to walk away from. Ask yourself, what storm are you facing right now that requires surrender, not force? What struggle have you been fighting so hard against that it has only left you exhausted? Maybe the lesson isn't to fight harder. Maybe the lesson is to let go. The next time stress or hardship tightens around you, pause. Instead of reacting, practice 5 minutes of mindful breathing. Inhale deeply. Feel the air fill your lungs. Exhale slowly. Feel the tension leave your body. Let the storm pass through you without resistance. Let yourself bend without breaking. A rigid mind snaps under pressure. A flexible mind endures. Be like bamboo. 3. The whispering seasons. Nature as your teacher. A single leaf drifts from a tree, spinning gently before resting on the earth. It doesn't resist. It doesn't cling to the branch, demanding to stay. It simply lets go, surrendering to the cycle of the seasons. In autumn, the trees shed. In winter, they stand bare, but in spring, they bloom again. The tree never mourns the loss of its leaves. It trusts the cycle. It knows change is not the end. It is just the beginning of something new. Yet, humans struggle with this truth. We resist endings, fear change, and cling to what feels familiar. We want life to stay the same, to be predictable, to be within our control. But nature whispers a different wisdom. Nothing lasts forever. The Buddha did not find enlightenment in a palace surrounded by wealth. He found it under a tree, in the stillness of nature, where truth is spoken in silence. The falling leaf, the flowing river, the shifting clouds, everything moves, everything changes. Think about your own life. How often do you try to control things beyond your reach? A relationship that's slipping away, a job that no longer fulfills you, a version of yourself that no longer fits who you are becoming. The more you resist, the more you suffer. But when you sit with nature, when you truly observe, you begin to understand. Nothing is ever lost, only transformed. Imagine walking barefoot on the earth, feeling the coolness of the soil beneath your feet. The world is still moving, yet in this moment you are present. You are not fighting the past or fearing the future. You are simply here. This is the power of solitude in nature. It dissolves the illusion of control and reminds you that chaos is not destruction. It is just the seasons changing. You are part of this cycle too. Just like the tree, you will shed, you will endure, and you will bloom again. Hard times are not a sign that something is wrong. They are a sign that you are evolving. The storms in your life are not punishments. They are necessary for your growth. Ask yourself, what lesson did nature teach you this week? Did the sunrise remind you that light always returns? Did the waves show you that everything moves in cycles? Did the wind whisper that you are not as alone as you think? The answers are always there, waiting in the silence. For the next week, spend just 10 minutes outdoors each day. Walk barefoot if you can. Feel the connection between you and the earth. Observe without distraction. Let nature teach you what no words can. Because when you finally stop resisting the flow of life, you will realize you were never lost. You were just in a season of change. 4. The lone wolf's clarity. Embrace solitude's power. A wolf stands alone on a mountaintop, its silhouette outlined against the vast sky. It tilts its head back and howls, not in despair, not in loneliness, but in strength. The lone wolf does not fear solitude. It embraces it. Away from the noise of the pack, it sharpens its instincts, strengthens its resolve, and listens not to the world, but to itself. In life, people often mistake being alone for being lost. They fear solitude, filling every moment with distractions, endless scrolling, constant noise, fleeting conversations. But the more you drown yourself in the world's voices, the harder it becomes to hear your own. There is a Zen proverb that says, "Listen to the sound of one hand clapping." It is a paradox, a lesson wrapped in silence. The answer is not in the noise. The answer is in the quiet. Think about it. When was the last time you sat alone, truly alone, without a screen, without music, without distraction? When did you last sit in silence long enough to hear your own thoughts instead of echoes of the world? The truth is, most people don't want to be alone, not because they love company, but because they fear what they might hear in the silence. Their doubts, their insecurities, the questions they've been avoiding. But solitude does not create fear, it reveals it. And if you can sit with it, face it, you will realize something powerful. Solitude is not emptiness, it is clarity. The louder the world gets, the quieter your truth becomes. Every day, you are bombarded with messages telling you who to be, what to want, how to live. And in chasing external validation, you lose the ability to recognize your own path. Solitude is not about isolation. It is about reclaiming your voice from the noise. It is the difference between being alone and being lonely. One is a choice, the other is a fear. Ask yourself, when did solitude last bring you clarity? Was it in a quiet moment before sleep, a walk with no destination? A morning when the world was still and you felt, for just a second, at peace? If those moments feel rare, it's because solitude must be chosen. It must be practiced. Just as a lone wolf listens to its instincts, you must learn to listen to your own. Here's how. Schedule a 15-minute digital silence ritual every day. No phone, no notifications, no screens. Just you and stillness. Let your mind settle. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, even unbearable, but stay with it. Listen, observe. With time, the silence will stop feeling empty. It will start feeling like home. The lone wolf does not seek the noise of the world to find itself. It howls into the night, not to be heard, but to remember its own voice. And so must you. 5. The full bowl, gratitude in scarcity. A monk once held out a simple clay bowl, its edges chipped, its surface worn from years of use. A traveler passing by laughed and said, "Why don't you replace it? It's broken." The monk smiled, filled the bowl with water, and held it up to the sunlight. Not a single drop leaked. "It holds perfectly," he said. "What more could I ask for?" Most people believe happiness is something they must chase. More money, more success, more possessions. But no matter how much they collect, it never feels like enough. There's always a new goal, a new desire, a new craving. The Buddha once said, "Enough is a feast." True wealth is not in having more, it is in needing less. Think about your own life. How often do you focus on what's missing? The things you don't have, the opportunities that haven't come, the dreams still out of reach. But what if lack is an illusion? What if the things you overlook every day, the roof over your head, the food on your plate, the simple moments of peace, are already more than enough? The truth is, abundance doesn't come from getting more. It comes from noticing more. Most people are blind to their own wealth, not material wealth, but the quiet, ordinary blessings that make up their days. The laughter of a friend, the warmth of sunlight on their skin, a deep breath that reminds them they are alive. These things are priceless, yet they go unnoticed because they seem ordinary. But what if the ordinary is the miracle? Ask yourself, what small joy are you overlooking today? Is it the taste of your morning coffee, the way the trees move in the wind, the silence before the world wakes up? The more you look for these small moments, the more you realize you are not lacking. You are full. Like the monk's bowl, you are already complete. Here's how to see it. Before bed each night, list 3 ordinary blessings, not big achievements, not future goals, just simple, present joys. A smile from a stranger, a song that lifted your mood, the feeling of clean sheets. At first, it may seem too small to matter, but as the days pass, you'll begin to see a pattern. Your life was never empty. You just weren't paying attention. The cracked bowl is not broken. It holds water, and that is enough, and so do you. 6. The shadow on the wall, befriend your fears. A child sits in a dark room, staring at a shadow on the wall. It looks like a monster, tall, looming, ready to strike. The child trembles, too afraid to move. But then, a breeze shifts the curtain, and suddenly, the shadow changes shape. It's not a monster, it never was. It was just an illusion, born from the mind's own projections. Fear works the same way. It feels real, overwhelming, inescapable. But have you ever truly touched fear? Held it in your hands? No, because fear, like a shadow, has no substance. It only exists when you turn away from the light. The Buddhist teacher once said, "Fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth." What if fear isn't here to stop you, but to guide you? What if it's a sign that you are standing at the edge of something important? Think about it. What is your greatest fear? Is it failure? Rejection? Being alone? Look deeper. What if beneath that fear there's a strength you've ignored? Fear of failure often hides a deep desire to grow. Fear of rejection masks an untapped confidence waiting to emerge. Fear of being alone. That's where self-discovery begins. Every fear you run from is a doorway to something greater. Most people never open that door. They see the shadow and turn away, never realizing that what they fear is often just a trick of the mind. But if you stop running, if you stand still and look directly at it, something incredible happens. Fear loses its grip. The shadow shrinks, and what once seemed impossible becomes just another step forward. History is filled with people who turned fear into fuel. The Buddha himself left behind his life of luxury, stepping into the unknown, facing discomfort and doubt, only to find enlightenment. He didn't conquer fear by avoiding it. He sat with it. He questioned it. And in doing so, he realized that fear was nothing more than an illusion of the mind. Ask yourself, what fear is hiding a strength you've ignored? Is your fear of speaking up actually a sign that your voice matters? Is your fear of change a signal that you are ready to evolve? The answers are not in avoidance. They are in confrontation. Fear does not disappear by wishing it away. It dissolves when you walk through it. Here's how. Write a letter to your fear. Name it, speak to it. Tell it what it has stolen from you, but also what it has taught you. Write down every doubt, every hesitation, every excuse that fear has whispered in your ear. Then, burn the letter. Watch the paper curl, blacken, and turn to ash. Feel the weight lift. This is not a ritual of destruction. It is an act of release. You are not fighting fear. You are making peace with it. A shadow has no power when you step into the light, and neither does fear. The more you chase freedom, the more fear will try to pull you back. But now you know the truth. Fear is not an enemy. It is a teacher. And when you learn from it, you will realize that you were never trapped. The door was open all along. 7. Pruning the digital garden. Detach to reconnect. A gardener walks into their garden, expecting beauty, but instead finds chaos. Weeds have taken over, strangling the roots of what was once vibrant and alive. The more they grew, the less light reached the flowers. The solution? Not to abandon the garden, but to prune it, to remove the excess so that what truly matters can thrive. Now, look at your life, your mind, your time. Is it a flourishing garden, or is it overgrown with distractions, tangled in notifications, endless scrolling, and fleeting digital validation? In today's world, silence is rare. Every second is filled with updates, messages, and alerts, keeping you tethered to a screen. The irony? The more connected we become online, the more disconnected we feel within. Buddhism teaches detachment, not as rejection, but as liberation. The Buddha once said, "You only lose what you cling to." And yet, we cling to every notification, to the fear of missing out, to the illusion that constant engagement means we matter. But real connection, the kind that nourishes the soul, doesn't happen through a screen. It happens in stillness, in presence, in the quiet moments between the noise. Imagine if you took a step back, if you pruned the digital weeds that steal your attention. what would you find? The answer is simple: yourself, your thoughts, your creativity, your clarity. When you remove what numbs you, you are left with what is real. Detaching from the digital world isn't about isolation. It's about reconnection. Have you ever noticed how, when you put your phone down, time slows? Conversations deepen, colors seem brighter, food tastes better. The world, once drowned out by endless distractions, begins to whisper truths you've been too busy to hear. Ask yourself, what truth are you avoiding by scrolling? Is it loneliness disguised as entertainment? Is it stress buried beneath distractions? Is it a dream you've ignored, replaced by watching others live theirs? The time you spend escaping is the time you could be using to create, to grow, to become. Here's how. Delete one app from your phone for the next 7 days. Just one. Maybe it's the one you reach for the moment you wake up, the one that consumes hours without you realizing, the one that leaves you feeling more drained than fulfilled. Let it go, and in its absence, notice what blooms. Maybe it's the book you finally read, the idea you finally pursue, the conversation you finally have. The peace you forgot was possible. Like a garden, your mind needs space to breathe, to grow, to find balance again. Cut back what no longer serves you. Detach, not to disconnect from life, but to return to it fully. Because the deepest connections don't happen in likes, comments, or endless scrolling. They happen in the quiet moments when you are truly present. When you stop seeking validation and realize that everything you need has been within you all along. 8. The stone in your pocket. Forgiveness as liberation. Imagine carrying a heavy stone in your pocket every day. At first, you barely notice its weight, but as time passes, it presses against you, making every step harder. You adjust, pretending it doesn't bother you, yet it slows you down, draining your energy. Now ask yourself, how many emotional stones are you carrying? Resentment towards someone who hurt you, guilt over a past mistake, anger at life for being unfair. Buddhism teaches that holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent to throw it at someone. You are the one who gets burned. The Buddha once said, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And yet, we drink. We carry grudges, thinking they give us control, thinking they protect us from being hurt again. But in truth, they trap us. Forgiveness is not about excusing someone's actions. It is about freeing yourself from their grip on your mind. When you refuse to forgive, you allow the past to dictate your present. Every thought of resentment reinforces the chains that hold you back. But what if you could let go? What if, instead of gripping that stone tighter, you opened your hand and let it fall? Here's the twist. The hardest person to forgive is yourself. We replay past mistakes, punishing ourselves for things we can no longer change. We whisper, if only I had done this differently. But what if you stopped? What if you allowed yourself to move forward, knowing that growth was never meant to be perfect? The truth is, you cannot walk a new path while staring at old footprints. Ask yourself, what stone have you carried for too long? Is it a mistake from years ago, a betrayal you can't forget, a failure that still haunts you? Imagine setting it down. Feel the lightness. Because that weight, it was never yours to hold forever. Forgiveness is not an event, it's a practice. It's whispering, I release you. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. It's looking at your reflection and saying, I choose to move forward, not because you are perfect, but because you are growing. Here's your action. Find a quiet moment. Close your eyes. Picture the burden you've been carrying. Then, with a deep breath, whisper, I release you. Maybe you need to do this for someone else. Maybe you need to do it for yourself. Either way, let the stone fall, because the path ahead is long and you deserve to walk it freely. 9. The archer's focus. Plan without attachment. An archer stands in silence, bow drawn, eyes locked on the target. But here's the secret. His focus is not on the bullseye. It's on the movement, the breath, the pull of the string. He knows that the moment the arrow is released, the outcome is no longer in his control. The wind may shift, the target may move. His job is not to obsess over where the arrow lands. His job is to shoot with precision and let go. How often do we grip life too tightly, convinced that if we just try hard enough, we can force things to happen exactly as we want? We map out the future, attach ourselves to specific outcomes, and then suffer when reality unfolds differently. The Tao teaches, let go or be dragged. The harder we cling to what we think should happen, the more we suffer when things don't go as planned. Imagine a river flowing down a mountainside. It does not resist the twists and turns, nor does it stop when met with obstacles. It simply moves, adapts, and finds a new path. But what happens when we try to hold on to water? It slips through our fingers. Life works the same way. The future is a river. Your plans should be rafts, not anchors. Now, think about how this applies to your life. Have you ever chased a dream so intensely that you forgot to enjoy the journey? Maybe you wanted a perfect relationship only to be crushed when it didn't meet your expectations. Maybe you set rigid career goals and felt defeated when life took you in a different direction. The truth is, suffering comes not from having dreams, but from clinging to them. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering, not desire itself, but the unwillingness to accept change. We must set intentions without letting our happiness depend on specific results. The archer takes the shot, but the moment the arrow leaves the bow, it is out of his hands. He does not chase after it. He does not panic if it lands somewhere unexpected. He simply breathes, adjusts, and prepares for the next shot. Ask yourself, what step can you take today without obsessing over tomorrow? Can you apply for that opportunity without fearing rejection? Can you express your feelings without expecting a certain response? Can you create without demanding perfection? If you can act without attachment, you are already free. Here's your challenge. Write down one goal, one dream, one thing you've been holding on to too tightly. Then burn the paper. Watch the smoke rise, carrying your expectations away. This is not about giving up. It's about letting go of fear. Take action, but detach from the result. Because life is not about forcing the arrow to hit the target. It's about taking the shot, trusting the wind, and embracing wherever it lands. 10. The unwritten scroll, your unique story. A blank scroll lies before you, untouched, waiting. No lines, no instructions, only endless space for a story that only you can write. But here's the question. Are you holding the brush, or are you waiting for someone else to write your story for you? Society tells you what success should look like. It hands you pre-written scripts. Get the perfect job, find the perfect partner, live the perfect life. But no two stories are meant to be the same. The poet Rumi once said, "Why compare your path to others? No two souls bloom the same." Yet, how often do we measure our worth against someone else's chapter? We see another's success and wonder if we're falling behind. We judge our struggles as failures instead of necessary ink strokes on our unfolding journey. Imagine an ancient calligrapher painting on silk. Each brushstroke is permanent. There's no erasing, no going back. If the ink spills, he doesn't discard the fabric. He adapts. He turns the mistake into art, reshaping the image into something unexpected but beautiful. Life works the same way. The parts of your story you think are flaws, the failures, the heartbreaks, the detours, are not the end of your journey. They are the ink that writes your wisdom. But too often, we hesitate to write at all. We fear making the wrong choice, so we make no choice. We silence ourselves because we're afraid our words won't be good enough. But what if the most powerful part of your story is the chapter you're hiding? The one you're afraid to share because it's messy, uncertain, imperfect. The truth is, those are the stories that shape us. The moments of struggle, of solitude, of self-discovery. These are the brushstrokes that define who we become. Ask yourself, what chapter of your story are you hiding? Is it the failure you don't speak of? The dream you abandoned because someone told you it wasn't practical? The part of yourself you suppress to fit in? What if, instead of erasing those moments, you embraced them? What if you honored them as part of the masterpiece that is uniquely yours? Here's your challenge. Find one story from your life that you've been reluctant to tell. Write it down. No filters, no judgment, just honesty. Then, read it aloud. If you're ready, share it with someone you trust. If not, whisper it to yourself. Because acknowledging your story is the first step to owning it. Your life is an unwritten scroll, and only you hold the brush. Do not wait for permission. Do not wait for perfection. Pick up the brush. Begin. Bonus. The thread in the tapestry, solitude's secret unity. A tapestry is woven from thousands of threads, each seemingly separate, yet bound together to form something greater. A single thread may feel insignificant, but without it, the entire design unravels. Solitude is much the same. At first, it may seem like isolation, like you are a lone thread, disconnected from the world. But the deeper you go into your aloneness, the more you realize something profound. You are not separate. You are part of everything. In today's world, being alone is often seen as a problem to be fixed. We fill every quiet moment with noise, distractions, and validation from others. We scroll, we consume, we seek constant connection, fearing the silence that solitude brings. But what if solitude wasn't a void to escape, but a gateway to something deeper? The Buddha spent years in solitude, not to isolate himself from humanity, but to understand it. When he emerged, he did not return with loneliness. He returned with love, wisdom, and a deep knowing that everything is connected. This is solitude's secret. The more you embrace it, the more connected you become, not through words or social validation, but through awareness. When you sit alone, truly alone, you begin to see that you are not separate from life. The trees breathe with you, the wind moves as you do, and the silence between your thoughts reveals a vast, unshakable presence. And once you touch this presence, you can never see the world the same way again. But solitude is not just about personal peace. It is about how you show up for the world. A mind that has sat in silence listens more deeply. A heart that has faced its own fears judges less harshly. A soul that has embraced its own solitude does not fear the solitude of others. When you become comfortable in your own presence, you stop seeking love from a place of emptiness. Instead, you become love. And when you move through the world as love, you heal it. Ask yourself, how does your solitude heal the world? Does your stillness bring more patience to your relationships? Does your self-awareness help you hold space for others? Does your acceptance of your own flaws make you less judgmental? True connection does not come from clinging to others out of loneliness. It comes from standing alone so fully that you can meet others without need, only presence. Here's your practice. Sit alone for 5 minutes. No phone, no distractions, just breathe. Then, silently send love to someone you've judged, whether it's a stranger, a friend, or even yourself. Feel the weight of separation dissolve, and in its place, a quiet understanding. You were never alone. You were simply learning to see the thread that connects us all. Quick summary of 10 lessons. Avoid comparing yourself. Your worth isn't defined by others. Focus on inner growth, not external validation. Build resilience. Flexibility, not rigidity, sustains mental strength. Surrender to challenges mindfully. Nature as teacher. Observe impermanence in nature to release control and find peace. Embrace solitude. Silence sharpens intuition. Use it to reconnect with your truth. Gratitude in scarcity. Recognize abundance in the present. Craving creates lack. Face fears. Fear is a shadow. Confront it to unlock freedom. Detach from social media. Prioritize presence over distraction to deepen real connections. Forgive to liberate. Letting go of grudges lightens your emotional burden. Plan without attachment. Set intentions, but release outcomes to flow with life. Your unique story. Own your path. Flaws and mistakes are wisdom in disguise. Bonus. Solitude reveals interconnectedness. Mastering it deepens your service to humanity. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. Ram Dass. Solitude isn't emptiness. It's the space where your soul speaks loudest. Every lesson here strips away the noise of modern life, guiding you back to your unshakable core. Buddhism teaches that true freedom lies not in escaping loneliness, but in dissolving the illusion that you were ever separate. Zen masters say, when you reach the top of the mountain, keep climbing. The journey to master solitude isn't about perfection. It's about embracing the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are. Your fears, comparisons, and distractions, they're not enemies. They're signposts pointing you home. Modern life screams, you're not enough. Buddhism whispers, you are already whole. Gratitude, forgiveness, and stillness aren't practices, they're revolutions. They dismantle the lies that keep you chasing, scrolling, and suffocating. Remember this. The greatest warriors weren't those who fought hardest, but those who sat longest in silence. As Thich Nhat Hanh said, the present moment is the only moment available to us. Your power isn't in fixing the past or controlling the future. It's in fully inhabiting now. Like and share this video if it awakened something in you. Drop a comment. What lesson will you carry into your solitude? Subscribe to Deep Wisdom, because peace isn't a destination. It's a daily rebellion against noise, and we're here to fight it together. A cup is most useful when empty. Your solitude isn't a void. It's the space where life pours in.